Thank you for listening to Eat Meat Sparingly, a Word of Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Ali Essig. And if you need more help and support with transitioning to eating more plants so you can lose weight and improve your gut health and just reduce your risk of chronic disease, then make sure to check out my PlantWise membership. That's PlantWhys, because I like to teach the why behind eating more plants. But if all you need is just a couple more delicious recipes that feed your family and everyone loves, and not to mention super simple and easy, then make sure to check out my YouTube channel, which is also PlantWhys, PlantWhys. Hope to see you there. You are listening to Eat Meat Sparingly, a Word of Wisdom podcast. I am your host, Ali Essig. This week's episode is sponsored by the Holistic Holiday at Sea. It is setting sail March 1st through the 8th. And I want you to imagine just for a second, not only enjoying the beautiful blue waters of the Caribbean, but also enjoying delicious whole food, plant-based dishes while you're on the cruise. It's amazing. It's like the one time you get to go on a cruise and actually feel really good because you get to enjoy healthy, delicious food. On top of that, the days that you're at sea, you get to go to a medical conference. And if you're kind of nerdy like me, if you're listening to this podcast, you most likely are, you love to learn why a plant-based diet is so beneficial. And you may also get a little fired up while you're listening to people like Dr. Greger and Dr. Barnard. And you may feel like me that you want to get on a soapbox and tell everyone why we should eat meat more sparingly and how we've been told this in the Word of Wisdom. And you're just listening to all the benefits when you eat this way. It is incredible. It's so amazing to deepen your understanding, to deepen your knowledge, but do it in the most fun way possible. And so when you book your vegan cruise, that holistic holiday at sea, just make sure to mention PlantWhys and you will get $50 towards the bookstore. So you make sure you leave room in your luggage so that you can pick out a book of your choosing and take it home with you and enjoy. I hope to see you there. This week's episode, we are talking all about neuropathy and kidney failure. Why did I choose this topic? Well, it's fascinating to me how little attention there is on this issue and how people don't understand the best way to actually treat neuropathy and kidney failure, because most people just manage the symptoms and don't really address the underlying issues. Even doctors are just going to give you medication to address the symptoms. Now, this topic came to our mind recently because I was sitting in Stake Conference when Elder Holland came and spoke. Now, this is not the Elder Holland, the Apostle Elder Holland. It was not Jeffrey R. Holland. It was Matthew Holland, who is the son to Jeffrey R. Holland. And it's kind of fun when you get a sneak peek kind of in the life of those apostles. And it was fun to listen to Matthew Holland talk about more of an intimate perspective of what his father has gone through over the last couple of years. I had no idea how difficult his health has been lately, how he struggled significantly. And he did tell us that right now he is struggling with neuropathy and kidney failure. And of course, he's so faithful and so amazing as he's going through these issues. And Elder Holland made sure to share that with us, his faith in Christ. But when I was sitting there, my husband's like, what's neuropathy? And I tried to explain to him what it is. So neuropathy, it's a term used for nerve damage. It can cause symptoms like tingling, burning, or even stabbing pain, weakness, and loss of sensation, primarily in the hands and feet. The most common cause of neuropathy is usually diabetes, where high blood sugar levels tend to damage these nerve fibers over time. But other causes can include infections, autoimmune diseases, vitamin deficiencies, alcohol abuse, or even certain medication. And then to go a little bit deeper, as I explained that to my husband, he was like, I bet you're going to say that a plant-based diet can help with that. And you're like, you know it does. You know it. I swear a plant-based diet is amazing. And it's amazing that in the Word of Wisdom, we're given this direction because it helps things like this, things that doctors don't even go into on how to support. So I'm going to tell you why eating meat more sparingly and why eating more plants is going to help with things like neuropathy. But I also want to talk about kidney disease and kidney failure. Now, kidney failure occurs when the kidneys no longer function properly. They don't function properly to filter waste products and excess fluids from the blood. And this leads to dangerous buildup of toxins, fluid retention, and other complications. So common causes are, again, diabetes, high blood pressure, which damage the small blood vessels in the kidneys. Other causes include chronic infections, genetic disorders, and autoimmune diseases like lupus. Now, how is kidney failure and neuropathy connected? Well, basically in diabetes, persistently high blood sugar levels cause nerve damage, that neuropathy, and kidney damage. And because both involve vascular and nerve health, they often occur together and exacerbate each other, creating a really challenging cycle. Now, there just isn't enough information out there or understanding of how a plant-based diet can help with this. In fact, my sister-in-law, her father is struggling with kidney disease as well. And I remember I was visiting my in-laws, we were having dinner together, and they had just had dinner at her parents' house. And I asked what they ate. And of course, it was like Sunday roast. And they talked about how their dad loves cooking meat and smoking his meat and loves his meat. And I'm just like, is it worth it though? Is it worth it? And most likely he has no idea the connection. He does not understand the connection. I think a lot of this is just lack of awareness, which is why I want to talk about it, because people do not connect the two. They don't connect that a diet high in meats and sweets is definitely going to make it harder when you have kidney failure or when you have neuropathy. So, currently, the treatments focus on managing symptoms and slowing disease progression. For neuropathy, medications like pain relievers, anticonvulsants, and antidepressants are even prescribed, but they often come with side effects and don't repair nerve damage. For kidney failure, dialysis or kidney transplantation are the primary options when the kidneys stop working. And while these treatments can be life-saving, they mainly address symptoms rather than root causes. They often lead to a diminished quality of life, dependency on medication, and significant healthcare costs. And they do little to prevent disease progression if underlying lifestyle factors like diet and blood sugar control are not ignored. But I want to tell you why it goes further than just blood sugar control. Because right now we're kind of obsessed with our metabolic health and making sure that we're keeping that blood sugar under control. And that is important. But a lot of people are going to do it with a high meat diet. And so I want to tell you all about Carrie. Now, Carrie is related to my husband. And when I first started PlantWise, when I first was looking for clients and telling people about the benefits of a plant-based diet, my husband's a relative, his wife had actually reached out to me and she said, "We need your help. We need your help. My husband has gone through some serious health issues lately. And we felt led and inspired to follow a plant-based diet, but we don't know how to do it." So let me tell you about Kerry. He was a type 2 diabetic, still is, right? But he'd been that way for 11 years at the time. And he prided himself on consistently keeping his A1C well under 7 as his 7.0, right? As his doctor's top. Most of the time, it was even well under 6.0. And he accomplished this by following the doctor's guidelines of a low carb, high protein diet, very high in meat. And by every indication, he felt that he was in complete control and doing well. But suddenly, 5 years previous to that, so it was about 6 years after he was diagnosed as a type 2 diabetic, everything changed. He was rushed to the ER and learned that he was in kidney failure. He spent a week in the hospital, another month on dialysis, which left him with 30% kidney function and high blood pressure. He was on 4 high-dose medications and further pushed that low-carb, high-protein diet. He was able to control his blood sugar levels. His A1C numbers were amazing. They were between 4.7 to about 5.6. Great. With everything that we have heard, you would think, okay, he was metabolically healthy. However, 2 years later, he developed a diabetic ulcer on his foot. He was in the hospital for 5 days. He did hyperbaric 3 hours a day for 5 days a week for 6 weeks. He had doctor's visits 1 to 3 times a week, and he was on a scooter for an entire year, and he nearly lost his toe or more. Okay, so this is where I got to meet Carrie. Luckily, one of his doctors saw everything that was going on and just on the side said, have you ever thought about following a plant-based diet? And at first he's like, ugh, no, everyone always rolls their eyes like, not eating meat. Are you kidding me? And I think it's really harder for an older generation, especially male in this older generation, where it's meat and protein. That's what it takes to be a man. But for Carrie, everything that he had gone through, it got to the point where the pain of change was less than the pain of staying the same. And he was open. And I'm so grateful that that doctor, there was finally a doctor that was like, hey, maybe, for you, like you should actually follow a plant-based diet. And luckily, this doctor had read the book Mastering Diabetes. And so it referred to him to read the book Mastering Diabetes. And he had already read it by the time that we had met. He knew what he needed to do. He just needed the support, the accountability, the recipes, and to be able to do it in a way with his wife where they were just held accountable. And sometimes that's all it takes. So at that point, we started working together, right? And he says, in his words, he's like, I'm so grateful. Thankfully, I found Ali Essig and PlantWise. I've always been this meat and potatoes type of guy. So when anyone ever mentioned plant-based anything, I was skeptical. I immediately came to realize that for the past 11 years, I was only treating the diabetic symptoms, not the underlying problem. I've now been plant-based for, at this point, it had been 3 months, like consistently. And he's learning how to use plant-based foods as medicine. The first few days were extremely difficult, but on day 4, I began to see results. Did you hear that? On day 4. On day 4, he started seeing results. And that's what kept him motivated. Wait till day 4. Just wait for it. The first couple days may be rough, but isn't that amazing? He already started seeing results. And my blood pressure dropped below normal for the first time in years. So with the help of my doctor, I began reducing my blood pressure medications. And that is something I do recommend if you're working with anyone who does have high blood pressure, they have to work really closely with their doctor because you'll see how fast they have to start dropping those medications. Thankfully, thanks to weekly group sessions and the personal one-on-one weekly coaching with Ali, I'm well on my way to better health. This experience is changing my life. So in 3 months, he lost 32 pounds and he reduced his blood pressure medications by 375%. He said, if you're ready to improve your health, you'd be well served to make PlantWise a core piece of your program. And it's not just PlantWise. It really is eating a plant-based diet, eating meat sparingly. He is also a member of the church. Obviously, he's related to my husband and his family, and we would talk about it. And he would serve in the temple, and he was saying others around him were noticing that he's losing weight, that he's doing well, he has more energy, and he didn't say anything. And I was like, no, you need to tell them, you need to preach the word of wisdom, the benefits of the word of wisdom. So he was like, okay, next time someone says something, I will. And so the next time we went to the temple and in the break room, while he was talking to someone else who was having similar struggles, he preached the word of wisdom to eat meat sparingly, and that this is how he was seeing the results and getting those results. And he felt more confident doing it. Sometimes it's kind of embarrassing to be like, yeah, I'm eating a plant-based diet. But when you can really bring it back to the word of wisdom, especially for someone who's a member of our faith, it brings a lot of power. Now, why did this work? Why does it go beyond blood sugar regulation? Why do plants work? So I want to explore that. First of all, studies show that a diet rich in fruits, vegetables, legumes, nuts, seeds, and whole grains can reduce inflammation. And chronic inflammation damages nerves and blood vessels, where plant foods are packed with antioxidants. And these compounds simply reduce inflammation. You do not get the kind of antioxidants, the amount of antioxidants in animal-based foods, period. It's like the tiniest little bit amount of antioxidants in animal-based foods. And even iceberg lettuce has a ton more. And so any type of plant that you can get in your body, any type, is going to have those antioxidants. Also, a plant-based diet improves your blood sugar control because of fiber. Dietary fiber helps stabilize blood glucose levels, reducing the strain on nerves and kidneys. Also, when I worked with Kerry, we also tried to keep his saturated fat really low, because if you listen to any of my other previous episodes about diabetes, I would highly recommend, if you have kidney failure, if you know someone that does, to not only listen to this episode, but also listen to the episode with Cyrus Kambata. He's Dr. Cyrus Kambata that I have on this podcast, because he is one of the co-authors of the book Mastering Diabetes. And he sat down and explained in 2 different episodes why it's so important to keep your saturated fat low and just your total overall fat to 30 grams a day or less. That when you do that, something magical happens and you're able to control your blood sugar levels. In fact, Carrie would say, he was like, I love it. I could never eat fruit before. Like, he hadn't eaten fruit in years, like 11 years. He was like, it's so delicious. delicious. Like he loved just the freedom of being able to eat fruit and how he still was able to keep his blood glucose levels stable. And you can do that when you're eating less saturated fat and when you're eating more fiber. The two are so important. It also supports your vascular health. So eating meat sparingly, right? Eating less animal products and eating more plants improves blood flow and benefits both the nerves and the kidneys. There's even studies that show just eating oranges, right? Just eating oranges makes your veins more flexible. And so those people who tend to get like cold fingers and cold toes often, that when you're eating oranges or citrus foods more often, that you get less cold fingers and less cold toes because you have more blood flow. And that is not just oranges, it's walnuts, it's potassium rich foods, it's mushrooms, it's so many things can help in this aspect. And most importantly, you see why it goes beyond blood sugar regulation, because a plant-based diet doesn't just help to regulate your blood sugar. It helps to lower your blood pressure and cholesterol. And you do not get that on a low carb, high animal product diet. You simply do not. You need to lower your blood pressure. You need to lower your cholesterol because this will help prevent further damage to your blood vessels. You want to know what was the greatest risk that my husband had when he had his stroke? High blood pressure. High blood pressure puts you at a high risk. High cholesterol. And even though my husband's cholesterol was like medium high, it wasn't even that high at all. But it's the high blood pressure that really influences it. So making sure that you're controlling that high blood pressure. Now, I like to eat salt. I'm not one that's like, go completely salt free. I do like my food to have flavor, but I do like to use light salt, Lite, and I just get it in bulk on Amazon. Light salt tastes just like salt, but it is half potassium chloride, and potassium rich foods in general are really great to lower your blood pressure. Now, in food form, that's going to come from beans, from leafy greens, from especially like spinach, from tomatoes, from potatoes, and yes, from bananas as well. But these potassium rich foods, like eating a potato every day is so beneficial. They will help to pull excess sodium from your bloodstream and put it into your urine. And guess what that does? That lowers your blood sugar levels. And so it's so simple, but that's like one of the biggest things that I suggest doing is eating potassium rich foods and then switching your salt from just like the regular salt to light salt. And you'll see a big benefit on those levels. Now, also the cool thing about a plant-based diet when you are struggling with kidney failure or you're struggling with neuropathy is that it can reduce oxidative stress. Reactive oxygen species cause cellular damage, and plants are high in what? Antioxidants that neutralize these harmful molecules. So again, that's why just controlling your blood sugar levels isn't enough. Eating a high animal product diet is not going to address the underlying symptoms. It's not going to address the underlying causes. It's going to really help with the symptoms, but it won't address the underlying causes. And so it's so important that you reduce inflammation. You, yes, control your blood sugar levels, but you also support your vascular health, lower your blood pressure and cholesterol, and reduce the oxidative stress. Remember, our blood vessels are so sensitive to this oxidative stress. After my husband had a stroke, I learned so much about how, especially in your brain, these blood vessels are so sensitive to that oxidation. And that's why we need to be eating more antioxidants. Now, what's the evidence that I have? Well, a 2019 study published in the Journal of Neuroinflammation found that plant-based diets reduced markers of nerve inflammation and promoted nerve regeneration. We're not just addressing the symptoms, right? We're addressing the underlying causes. Did you hear that? Nerve regeneration. It helps to heal you. Another study in Nutrients in 2020 showed that people with diabetes who adopted plant-centered diets specifically improved blood sugar and kidney function over 6 months. Now, on top of that, there's also going to be specific foods that are beneficial to your nerve and kidney health. Specifically, I mentioned citrus fruits, right? Potassium-rich foods, but berries are really great. Blueberries, strawberries, they're rich in those antioxidants. They help to fight the nerve inflammation. Another food that's super high in antioxidants is amla. Including amla powder as part of your process is going to help significantly. On top of that, leafy greens like spinach and kale contain magnesium and other nutrients that support nerve conduction. So eating leafy greens every single day. And then nuts and seeds, almonds and chia seeds provide the healthy fats that are vital for nerve repair. On top of that, legumes, we love our beans, right? Lentils and chickpeas, they improve insulin sensitivity. And whole grains like quinoa and brown rice support steady energy and glucose levels. So the biggest question as we learn about all of these benefits is, why isn't a plant-based diet standard care? Why isn't a plant-based diet standard care when you are diagnosed with neuropathy and when you have kidney failure? It's sad, right? It's sad when it's so beneficial. And I'm so grateful that Kerry had a doctor that knew about it and that knew to just put that in his ear. Hey, what about a plant-based diet? And so that's why we need people like you to spread this information. Because despite the compelling evidence, it is not a standard care. And most of the time, it is just simply because of lack of awareness among healthcare professionals and patients, lack of awareness because they aren't taught this in medical school, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Like they're taught which medications help and, how to address, again, just like that instant symptom, but they're not taught about prevention. They're not taught about diet and how powerful this can be. Medical training tends to emphasize pharmaceuticals and surgical interventions over dietary approaches. And why not do everything that you can that's in your power? There's also plenty of industry influence, right? Not only from pharmaceutical companies that have little financial incentive to promote dietary cures, but also from the meat and dairy industry. Like they don't want you to know this. And so culturally, our society is just accustomed to a meat-heavy diet, and changing habits is so challenging. Moreover, there is a lack of large-scale, long-term clinical trials that really prove that a plant-based diet can be effective. And so I would love to see more large-scale clinical trials on this. From what we've seen with Carrie and other situations, it is so beneficial and it doesn't hurt anything. You will get accustomed to the taste and flavors. It may be difficult for the first couple of days, but more than anything, I just want to emphasize how eating meat sparingly is so powerful. You don't have to be a perfect vegan to see these benefits. In fact, Kerry said that when he would travel or if he was at his kids' houses, he would be less picky on things. But when they were home, they would make sure that they were following it to the best of their ability. But he's like, it was amazing that he would see the benefits again as soon as he went back. As soon as he's back from travel, he would see those benefits just kick right in as soon as possible. He always had to keep his blood sugar regulated, and he could notice how eating more plants, eating more fiber was so beneficial. And again, not just for his blood sugar regulation. That's just one piece of the puzzle for his blood pressure control, right? For vascular and structural damage. That diabetic neuropathy involves damage to the small blood vessels in the kidneys, which can develop silently over years. And once these vessels are damaged, lowering blood sugar alone will not be sufficient to prevent progression. Factors like inflammation, oxidative stress play a role in this vascular damage. And I do also want to say that there is a genetic component to all of this. Sometimes it can just be part of your genes, that some people have a genetic predisposition that makes their kidneys more vulnerable to damage from diabetes or high blood pressure or other metabolic factors, even if their blood sugars are well controlled. So because of that, you actually should be the person who's more likely to follow a plant-based diet. And there's limitations to the conventional management. Like the standard treatments often focus heavy on blood sugar and blood pressure, but they do not fully address underlying inflammation, oxidative stress, or diet inequality. In the case, of Carrie, a high protein, low carb diet may have helped control his blood sugar, but it may not have supported his overall vascular and kidney health. And we need to support the whole human, the whole thing. And in order to do that, we really do need to be eating less meat. In general, it's funny because I told you how my sister-in-law's father has a kidney issue and kidney failure. And it's sad and it's devastating and it's struggling. And we were at a family function and we were having hamburgers. And I brought my plant-based burgers to this. And she asked, okay, well, what's the protein in it? And I was like, well, it's actually soy. And she was like, just kind of looked at me like, that's not good for you. Well, let me tell you why actually soy is one of the best things you could be eating if you're in kidney failure, because soy contains less inorganic phosphorus, an animal protein. In kidney failure, the kidney's ability to excrete phosphorus is reduced, leading to accumulation that can weaken bones and cause cardiovascular issues. So choosing soy helps manage phosphorus levels more effectively. Plus, soy is a high quality plant-based protein. It provides complete protein, meaning it contains all the essential amino acids. This makes it an excellent plant-based source of protein that supports tissue repair and overall health without overloading the kidneys. Plus, it has less acidic load. Animal proteins tend to produce more acid during digestion, which can strain the kidneys and contribute to metabolic acidosis, which is a common problem in kidney failure. And so soy, being plant-based, generates less acid, helping maintain a better acid-base balance. Also, soy is lower in saturated fat and cholesterol. Soy has minimal saturated fat and no cholesterol, reducing cardiovascular risks, which are heightened in kidney disease patients. And it has bioactive compounds and isoflavones. Soy contains isoflavones, which have antioxidants and anti-inflammatory properties, which are possibly offering additional protective benefits for kidney health. So in summary, soy is nothing to be afraid of. Don't roll your eyes when someone brings in the soy-based burgers because they taste amazing. I love the Morningstar brand and they're cheaper than the other brands that are out there and also less caloric, but soy is heart healthy. Right? It is kidney friendly. It is a great protein source that supports nutritional needs while reducing the burden on impaired kidneys. This makes it a preferred choice in renal diets. I would love if you could share this with a friend. Please share this with a friend who has neuropathy. Please share this with a friend who has kidney failure. Please, please share this information so that you can contribute to the type of situation that Kerry had with his doctor when they said, well, maybe I've heard that a plant-based diet can help. And then when he did it, it changed everything. We have this information, and guess what? It's right there in the word of wisdom. It's kind of ridiculous that we have to go to science to back it up and not just trust what God has given us, but it's there. We have it, and it will help regardless. And we don't just have to rely on your doctor and what your doctor says and whether or not diet plays a role. You know that you have this guidance in the word of wisdom that can help you, that can even help here. And I have no idea. I have no idea what is going on with Elder Holland or anyone else in anyone's situation. And I'm not saying I have no idea what is going on personally. So I'm not going to speak to that. But I will say that most people just aren't aware. They just aren't aware. And that's why I'm here on this podcast to just spread awareness of how powerful the word of wisdom can be when we follow it completely, not just the avoid the alcohol and the drugs, but when we eat meat sparingly as well, when we eat more plants, when we follow it and really put it to the test, you will be able to see benefits like these. Will it fix everything perfectly? Probably not, but it's worth a try. And sometimes you do have to get to the point where the pain of change is greater than the pain of staying the same. And it can be hard for the older generation. No question. It can be really hard when you've been eating a meat and potato type of diet for years and years and years. And so it's important to give everyone grace, meet them where they're at, not tell them what they're doing wrong. I hate it when people on social media are constantly telling me what I'm doing wrong. It's not fun. It's not fun to hear. And so just be an inspiration, show them what's possible, be positive, be kind, be understanding. Again, meet people where they are and recognize that change can be hard. Change to diet is harder than changing your religion because you eat 3 times a day. So while it may be easy for you, it could be harder for others. And so it's worth it though. It's worth it. So keep at it. Good luck. I know it is worth it. And I just want to finish with a story from Carrie. After we got to work together for 3 months, I loved working with him. He reminded me of my dad. I'm going to get emotional. He was such a great cheerleader. And my dad was a big cheerleader. He was my biggest fan. My dad passed away of a heart attack. And when you have diabetes, you guys are 4 times more likely to die from a heart attack. You most likely will die from a heart attack than you will from your diabetes. That's just where you're at because of the current standard of care of how you're supposed to manage diabetes, just managing the blood sugar, right? You're not managing overall. And sometimes I think I started plant-wise, not just because my husband had a stroke, but because I couldn't do anything in my dad's case. I couldn't save him. I couldn't help him. It was his one and only heart attack. He was 55 years old and then he was gone. He was gone. And after I got off our last one-on-one call with Carrie, he just said, "Thank you so much. I'm doing so well. Things are so great." And I put the phone down and I just started crying. I just started sobbing because while I couldn't help my dad, I could help Carrie.
And in a way, it just like when you go through hard things, it's the compensatory blessing that you couldn't help your own family member, but if you can help others, it makes it all worth it. It really does make it all worth it. So I just want to encourage you again, eating meat sparingly, it can be so powerful, especially if you eat more plants with it, and that it's worth it. If again, share this with as many people as you can, because it's so important to understand the benefits, the truth that we have right in front of our faces. All right. Have a good week.
Thank you for listening to Eat Meat Sparingly, a Word of Wisdom podcast. I'm your host, Ali Essig. And if you need more help and support with transitioning to eating more plants so you can lose weight and improve your gut health and just reduce your risk of chronic disease, then make sure to check out my PlantWise membership. That's PlantWhys, because I like to teach the why behind eating more plants. But if all you need is just a couple more delicious recipes that feed your family and everyone loves, and not to mention super simple and easy, then make sure to check out my YouTube channel, which is also PlantWhys, PlantWhys. Hope to see you there.